the House of the Temple of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. It's an architectural masterpiece and one of the most impressive Masonic buildings you will ever see. And today, we're going to take you inside one of its most important spaces. Welcome to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. I'm Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Freemason, your host here on the channel. This isn't your first YouTube video, so you know the drill. Subscribe to the channel, please. It really does help us out. Also, make sure you give us a thumbs up on the video. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything. And if you've got a question about Freemasonry or you want to shout out your lodge or your valley, we'd love to hear from you. Please drop a comment below. We love to interact and answer all of your questions and find out more about what you want to see here on the channel. I've been promising for some time that we're going to get a better look at the House of the Temple. The House of the Temple of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is the national headquarters for the Supreme Council of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction for the United States of America, Mother Supreme Council of the world. Now, that's a big mouthful to say, but basically, this is national headquarters for the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction. And inside this building, not only is there a museum, in fact, there are several museum spaces, there's a grand ceremonial space, and there are actually working offices where those of us who work for the Supreme Council manage all the day-to-day stuff. Showing you the entire building all at once would be a little much. That would be a really long video, and so we're working out a way to give you little bits and pieces of some of the most important, most interesting spaces inside the building. Just to give you a quick geography lesson, the House of the Temple sits on 16th Street in Northwest Washington, D.C., which is just about a mile from the back door of the White House. So if you were to step out the back door of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and head straight up 16th Street, on your right-hand side, you're going to run into the House of the Temple. The exterior of the building we've talked about previously on the channel, and we're going to give you a full tour of the exterior in an upcoming video. And we've got some other spaces that we want to highlight, but going through the archives and getting ready to put together some different videos for you guys, I found an excellent tour video of one of the most important spaces inside the House of the Temple. As you enter the building into the grand atrium, again, we'll go over this one later, one of the spaces off to the left here is the executive chamber. Now, this executive chamber is the private meeting space for our Supreme Council. You can think of the Supreme Council as our board of directors, and they get together periodically and meet privately in their boardroom, which we call the executive chamber. Brother Daniel Matsumoto, who is in charge of our docent program at the House of the Temple, recently did an excellent video that really goes into some detail on all the things inside the executive chamber. So here's Brother Daniel Matsumoto giving you a full-on tour of the executive chamber, just as you would get one if you were to come and visit us in person.
My name is Daniel Matsumoto. Welcome to the Executive Chamber in our Scottish Rite House of the Temple. I work here with the Supreme Council and our Grand Commander, Jim Cole, controlling a lot of our docent operations here at the Temple. We have a dedicated docent program, and we hire docents and give dedicated tours of this building. So I handle all of those training initiatives. In terms of this room in particular, there is a lot of really interesting stuff to look at here. So our executive chamber actually serves as a bit of the operational nexus of our Supreme Council. You can think of it as that. Every 2 years in August, our Supreme Council comes out to this chamber and they meet. They meet for something called our Executive Council session during our larger biennial session, which you might have heard of, and they discuss a number of different things. Our Supreme Council acts as you might expect a board of directors to act. And they have a number of different committees going over different things operationally. We have committees on administration and finance. We have committees, of course, on ritual, even on foreign relations. So every 2 years they come out here, they sit in these 33 chairs around the room in order of seniority, and they meet. And they discuss not only the operations over the past 2 years, but also sort of the strategic overview of what we're looking at for the next coming years in our Supreme Council. Now, this room, as you might expect, given the House of the Temple is a very symbolically rich building, has a lot of symbolism integrated into it. When you're walking around here, you can start by looking at the top of our room. We have a number of different emblems there which sort of represent a fusion of what you might see in terms of Masonic and classical symbolism, in this case Egyptian symbolism, because our architect designed this building at sort of the twilight of the American Renaissance during the sort of neoclassical revival. So you're going to see a lot of those themes around our building and also exemplified around this room. Masonically speaking, when you look around our room, you're going to see we have emblems of the Seal of Solomon, those sort of overlapping triangles representing the seal that, mythologically speaking, was on King Solomon's signet ring. We have our lamp of knowledge representing this room and this sort of temple's reliance, not only on Masonic tradition, in this case a tradition of light and masonry, but also on those Egyptian values of knowledge. Looking at some of the other emblems around here, we also have our Supreme Council's eagle of the 33rd degree. You'll see also in the corners of our rooms. Of course, the altar in the center of our room here is like an altar sitting in the center of every Masonic lodge. When you look upon this altar, a more smaller altar than the altar that you might see up in our temple room, you'll see that we have books representing here sort of you can look at it as the popular trinity of Abrahamic religions around the world nowadays. We have holy books representing Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and it's interesting to be able to look at this altar and see them sort of represented as companion equivalent faiths. You'll also see that up in our temple room, where we have a couple other interesting books on the altar as well. Now, this room not only is sort of a triumph of Masonic symbolism, but it's also a little bit of a technological triumph. So when you look around this room and you see our seats of our Supreme Council members and you look really closely, you might see that we have an installed acoustic system back here. Now, when that acoustic system was operating, when our building was first built, that sort of served to project the Grand Commander's voice to the officers around the room. Now, since renovation, that system no longer works as effectively, but it sort of goes to show that when our building was designed, it was designed with an incredible amount of forethought and also a pretty significant amount of technological innovation for the time. Now, our room also is a little bit of a triumph in renovation. There are a few primary pieces of renovation that you'll see when you're looking around our executive chamber. You might start first with our skylight at the very top of the room. Now, that skylight used to open to natural light, allowing sort of natural sunlight to beam down on our central altar. But now it serves a little bit more of a humble purpose in that it is primarily meant to host some of our air conditioning technology above the skylight right there. Now we still light that skylight electronically, but it no longer serves its original purpose of beaming light down into the room. Now, if you look around the edges of our room, you'll see that one of our panels is unlike any of the others. It's this panel right back here in the corner. It has a little bit of a difference in coloration. You'll see that the color on that panel is a little bit more eggshell blue than sort of the purple pink of the rest of the panels around the room. That's because when our building was built, we had a lot of our original mechanical work, a lot of our original piping running behind these plaster walls. Now, unfortunately, when one of those water pipes detonated, it destroyed that entire section of the wall, which meant that we had to not only replaster it, but also repaint it. Now, if you look really closely at these walls around the room, you'll notice that they're actually painted to represent kind of faux limestone, a kind of limestone facade, or even a marble facade. We had a visitor who came through here once, and he had painted walls all his life. It was sort of his life's work, and he had a lot of it under his belt. And he looked at them, and he told me, "Wow, I didn't even know. It's just perfect." Now, I don't know if perfect is the right word, but I think it does a pretty good job, and you'll see that when you sort of come through here. Additionally, looking around here, you'll see that we've had a lot of restoration work done in our ceiling in a lot of different areas around the room. That's made possible, of course, by our members and our donors as well, and we wouldn't be able to do this without so much of their support. We also have a few final symbols that I think are really interesting when you look at our executive chamber. In particular, We have a couple artifacts that are very rich in Masonic symbolism and Scottish Rite symbolism. When you look at these right here, we have the sword that's borne by our Grand Sword Bearer on our Supreme Council. It's sort of the triumphal procession at the start of every Supreme Council biennial session that you'll see. We also have our scepter held by our Master of Ceremonies and our Supreme Council, also held in sort of that processional line. You'll see when you look really closely at these, we have a number of different Masonic symbols. We have our 9-pointed star, our triple trinity with our 33rd degree in the center, and all of our bestowal information from our donors on those artifacts. Moving outside, we have, of course, the entrance to our chamber door. It's a very humble looking door, but interestingly enough, we have this beautiful brass door knocker right on the front. Now that door knocker, like I mentioned, looks like a very humble door knocker, but this is actually something that I think is personally one of my favorite areas of the building, because this door knocker is a knocker from the front door of Shepherd's Tavern, where our Scottish Rite was founded in 1801 in Charleston, South Carolina. So that door knocker is a little bit over 200 years old, but it is in sterling condition, and it sort of symbolically is installed right here on our executive chamber door.
Thank you so much, Brother Daniel, for sharing your expertise with us on the executive chamber. I think it's one of the most important and one of the most impressive spaces in the House of the Temple. And my favorite detail in that building is that they went to great length to make sure that the air conditioning unit still looked like a skylight, so that the room kind of maintained its original look and feel as you enter. It really does feel like there's natural light coming into that room, even though there isn't, because of the air conditioning unit that they have placed on the roof that covers up that skylight. So that's just my favorite detail. But what's your favorite detail? Drop a comment below, or if you've got some question you want us to answer, we would be glad to answer that question here on the channel. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Freemason, and we'll see you next time right here on the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. Hey, if you're watching this video and you want to learn how to become a Freemason, click this video right here and it's going to give you a step-by-step process to follow on how to connect with a Masonic Lodge. And if you're already a Master Mason interested in joining the Scottish Rite, click this link right here and it's going to take you to the Scottish Rite website where you can sign up to become a Scottish Rite Mason right now.